have the feds drafting a plan to ban social media for children under the age of 14. This one comes from the Globe and Mail. So this is on under the, I believe it is the online, the incoming online harms bill.
Yeah.
Part of a suite of possible measures aimed at protecting young people in the digital space. Apparently, 3 sources told that to the Globe and Mail. It follows a social media ban for younger people under 16 that took effect in Australia this past December. I've actually been watching that pretty closely.
Yeah.
And it has caused other countries, including Canada and Britain, to consider following the Australian example. The sad thing about the Australian example is that it's not working. Is that these teens are so savvy on their
For
devices
sure
and
they
with
are.
tech that they're finding every which workaround there is to get past the ban.
Right.
So this isn't really about protecting kids online, because if it were, there wouldn't be a bunch of workarounds that a 14-year-old could figure out.
Right. And really, all this does is raise the age of from 13 to 14. But 13, those kids are still on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows youngsters, like young ones who are on Snapchat because they
Yeah.
like the kid-friendly filters and or wherever the young people go, TikTok. They love the youngsters love having their brains rewired by TikTok. And kids already under the age of 13 are figuring out the workaround. So what's the federal government going to do? We're going to make it 14. Great.
I
How
think
does
it's
that fix
sad.
anything?
Well, and it's obviously just being done under the guise of protecting children online, but the Online Harms Act in and of itself is basically just a censorship and control bill.
Right.
It's an online control bill. It's being sold to you as though it's going to protect children online by,
That's why they're
as you
doing this.
mentioned, bumping the age by 1 year, which is absolutely absurd. But this is really about censoring and controlling what you can find and access online.
Right. This is an omnibus censorship bill, and they have to shoehorn stuff about kids into it to get buy-in from the
Yeah.
public. Because, oh, everybody is in support of making sure that kids don't get harmed online. So why don't you support our stupid bill? Because your stupid bill censors adults and does really nothing to help kids. And it, it helping kids is something that's already in the in pieces of legislation. There's
Mhm.
anti-bullying legislation, there's anti-revenge materials. I'm trying to keep us on YouTube. Legislation already. They also rejected Michelle Rempel Garner's legislation that would have dealt with some of the things that are built into the Online Harms Act without all the censorship. But the Liberals rejected that because the point of the legislation is not about keeping Canadians safe online. It's about keeping the Liberals safe online from their critics.
Quick ad read from our friends at the Wellness Company on the ultimate spike detox and amyloid microclots. So, the trickery about man made spike proteins is they can slowly and secretly create long lasting effects inside the body, despite people feeling fine. In a new peer reviewed study, researchers tested the blood of 34 women and men who all received the Pfizer mRNA vaccine, and every one of them tested positive for micro blood clots circulating in their system. These are stubborn, hard to break down clots that have been linked to lingering symptoms in both the unvaccinated and vaccinated. So the obvious question becomes, how do we detox the spike proteins? Nattokinase, a natural enzyme that has been shown to dissolve up to 84% of micro blood clots within 2 hours in vitro. Even at lower amounts, it still reduced the number of clots, the intensity of the clot signal, and the overall clot size. What makes this even more important is that nattokinase has also been shown to break down the spike protein itself in vitro. This means it's positively attacking the damage and the culprit simultaneously. No pharmaceutical therapy has shown this combined effect. This is why the wellness company created Ultimate Spike Detox. It is designed to support the body's natural ability to break down spike proteins and support healthy circulation. Head on over to twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL10 to get 10% off. That's twc.health/rebel and code REBEL10 to get 10% off. Exactly, and they have to sell it to you and package it up with a nice pretty bow that it's about protecting children and their safety online,
Yeah.
which, I mean, at the heart of it, that's the parents' job also. I
Exactly.
think that if kids had parents who were more involved in these spaces and who put more clear boundaries and stipulations on their social media use, we wouldn't also simultaneously have this epidemic of youth anxiety, depression, eating disorders, poor body image. All of these things are directly
Right.
tied to the amount of time you spend doom scrolling on these platforms when you don't have a fully developed frontal lobe that can say, oh, it's been an hour and a half. I need to rein this in, disconnect, disengage, and go do something else. Like these kids quite literally just don't have the brain capacity or the maturity level to be able to disengage. And that's really a failure, I think, on parents.
Right.
And we've seen like here in Ontario, schools have had to step in. They had to launch lawsuits against the big tech giants and ban phone use in schools, which I would say also has an effect on the ability of children to hold teachers accountable because we are starting to see those clips come out of how
Sure.
teachers were actually behaving in classrooms. But at the same point in time, these kids were being distracted on their devices with no parental oversight or control. So it's a failure by
Right.
the parents. And then, of course, when you don't have the parents' oversight, then the state feels like it naturally has to step in, and that comes with its own repercussions.
Right. Like, why does your 10-year-old have an iPhone? You know what
It's
I mean?
crazy.
Why? Like, why don't you just open the door and invite the weirdos into your house? Because that's
Yeah,
what this is. This is a portal for weirdos to get access to your children. Why does your 10-year-old have an iPhone? Stop
yeah.
doing that, and the liberals will stop trying to use that to censor the rest of us.
Exactly. It's really sad though with the school now in the public system anyway, which has tons of problems in and of itself. But I find it's so normalized for these children to have
Yeah.
phones. And
Oh,
then,
for sure.
you have your children coming home and saying, but everyone in my class has it. And that
Yep.
might not be totally true. But I feel like if parents were able to band together and say, you know what, let's all collectively say no to our children so that they don't feel like they're left out. And what positive or benefit is this really providing to our kids? We can see the anxiety, depression, social disorder, all of these things lamenting after the use of these devices. And it's going to take parents to come together and say, we're saying no, and maybe you should too.
You like the hat? Me too. Same strong message about making Canada great again, but in a really cool color, black and gold. There's other colors available, and it's an all Canadian site. So if you want to signal your tribe or trigger a liberal, go to mcgahats.ca today.